I'll have an happy bedroom wall. Watch out, out of nowhere! Watch out, watch out, watch out!
Welcome to Orient Live. It's a big one this weekend and the O's are on the road, and I hope you've got your passports because it's a big international European away day as we face Newport County at Rodney Parade. And there's enforced changes for both sides this afternoon, with Newport being ravaged by COVID and Orient with 2 stars on international duty with the Cyprus under-21 unit. But I'm absolutely delighted to have you with us today for Leyton Orient versus Newport County. And here we are in the E10 studio, and I'm joined by none other than Glenn Wilkie and Andrew Butler. Thank you so much for joining today, guys. And as you said there, it's a big one, but there's a lot going on around today's game. Newport's first game back at Rodney Parade after having their pitch relayed. The O's unbeaten on the road. Newport not in too bad. It's a big one, Andrew.
Yeah, it will be. And coming off the back of that win against Bradford last weekend, a fantastic win for us. It's a performance that probably made the rest of the league, sit up and take note. And Newport, despite their slightly mixed start to the season, will be probably buzzing to be back at Rodney Parade. It's their first home league game back there since having their pitch relayed, which was a pitch, let's be honest, that was desperately needing to be relayed for the last few years actually. But so they'll be buzzing to get back there. So we'll have a tough test definitely, but another big game. It seems like they're coming thick and fast already.
Is it someone that every season, Newport are touted to be in and around there, Glenn? And you guess this year would be no different. We've already faced a lot of sides like that, but the character we showed last week to beat a well-tipped Bradford side and bouncing back from the loss before that one, the O's are going to want to be continuing that hot form.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think there's many teams in this division, if we played like we did in the second half last week, who could live with us, because the intensity was there, some really good play. We created chances, we took chances. It was a fantastic second half performance, and like I say, there's not many teams in this league who would be able to cope with us on that form.
And as we said at the top of the show, there's changes all around on both sides. But let's start with the Orient team for this afternoon. There's just the 2 changes, with of course Hector Cipriano and Rusa Tiriou both playing and scoring for Cyprus under-21 yesterday. But here is our starting 11 to face Newport. In goal, number 22, Lawrence Vigouroux. At right back, number 2, Tom James. On the other side, number 3, Connor Wood. In the middle, number 8, Craig Clay. Number 9, Harry Smith will be looking to continue his scoring form. Number 11, Theo Archibald. Number 15, new Orient loan signing, Mitchell. Number 16, returning to the side after injury, is Aaron Drinnan. Number 18 and captain is Darren Pratley. And the final 2 centre-backs this afternoon, number 19, Omar Beckles, and number 25, Shad Oji. And on the bench, of course, Rhys Byrne, new Orient signing following his release from Wimbledon, is Callum Riley, Dan Kemp, Tyrese Omotoye, Anthony Papadopoulos, Jaden Sweeney, and Dan Nkrumah. Now, Glenn, how are we going to even look at this one? Because we were having a few discussions beforehand. I'm saying 5, you're saying 3. It's looking like a different setup for Kenny's boys today.
It does, yeah, and fair play to the manager. He changes things as he sees fit to, which he's not stuck in his ways. This is our system, this is how we're going to play regardless. He looks at the players at his disposal. Obviously, he's been forced to make a couple of changes because of the international call-ups. And he's probably looked at the opposition as well when they play a similar sort of formation. So you said we're going 5 at the back. I find that very negative. I don't like that. I think we're going 3 at the back with Beckles, Mitchell and Oggy. And then obviously we've got the 2 wing backs. Hopefully we can get them playing as wing backs, not as defenders, because then that means we're always pushing forward. We've got the 2 holding midfielders in there with Clay and Pratley, then Drinnan, Archibald and Smith up front, whatever way they work out. I think they're going to play Drinnan and Archibald just behind Smith, so any long balls that go up to him, they can feed off him or get onto the flick-ons. I don't think it will be a solid 3 up front. I think they'll just be floating in and around, as we've seen Dan Kemp when he started, just in that sort of number 10 or around that area. But the three at the back is very, very positive. If we go five at the back, it's very negative, and I don't like that setup.
Well, I'm sure we'll come on to scoring goals as well, and how the O's are going to go about that. But looking at some of the new faces in the O's camp, obviously Mitchell at the back, signed on loan from Millwall. He said in his interview after he signed, "People call me a meathead, but I just love to defend." and you get the impression that that's the kind of style he's going to bring to that Orient back line.
Yeah, you see some of the clips online if you've seen his interview as well in midweek when he signed for the club. He sees that he's a no-nonsense type defender coming in from Millwall. He's had experience at Bromley as well. So we're getting a defender there that seems to, he just kind of like quite straightforwardly just says, "I love defending," but he was kind of more forgiving to himself as well, saying, "No, I can play as well." Towards the end of the interview, he's like, "No, don't get me wrong, I can play as well." So, be interested to see how he fits in that back three with Beckles and Shad. But yeah, nice, good early start, like a nice early test for him as well, because we need to see what he's about. But I mean, looking at the team as a whole, we're without Ruel and Hector, obviously on international duty, but that is a really, really strong 11. And we said after the Bradford game, having a strong squad is all about having those good headaches for Kenny Jackett to have. And we're putting out a really, really strong 11, what looks like strong on paper for sure. So we hopefully won't be missing like Soteria and Hector, and that can only be a good thing.
Can I just say something? Mitchell, his nickname's Meathead. That was my nickname when I played here. Exactly the same. Oh, and Moonhead and Planethead, but mainly Meathead.
Still your nickname to this day, Glenn. But sticking on those deadline day signings, of course, Callum Riley joining us following his release from Wimbledon. It's another player coming in who's just fresh off of a League One season. Majority of our signings this season came from the leagues above, and again, it's another good signing, and he looks as though he'll add a bit of physicality to that midfield. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And he's, he unfortunately had a couple of injuries at Wimbledon, but got some good game time there as well. Played, I think, 35 games for them in the course of one season before having his injury. So looks like we get a quite physical midfielder there in the centre of the park alongside whoever that might be, Prattley or Clay or Hector. Also takes set pieces as well, so that's good for us to have another competition for who's going to take those set pieces. It's been Tom James so far this season, but will Callum Riley have take over those duties? We wait and see. So yeah, it looks like another shrewd acquisition from us.
What I was going to say, it's interesting that obviously Kenny Jackett's come and he's assessed the squad, he's brought players in. We've seen a few games start, and then he's assessed it again and looked at areas and thought, what do I need to bring into this team to strengthen it? And he's brought in two gritty, tough players. So is that what we needed? Were we too nice?
I was going to say, do you think we've lacked any of that this season at times?
I don't think so.
No, I don't. But I think this league cries out for those type of players with experience. We saw last week with the midfield. Against Harrogate with the midfielder, the little, I forget his name, but Faulkner. He runs around. He's horrible to play against. And everyone I spoke to said that's the type of player we need, and hopefully Riley is that.
Hopefully so. And there's another. It might feel like a new signing. He started the season really well. Aaron Drennan scored a few goals, and he returns from injury, and he's gonna want to hope to come back and continue that scoring form, especially after Ruel's away with Cyprus and that strike he did here last week. We want another striker up there who can be in and around Smith, and hopefully Drennan can be that striker.
Yeah, really good start to the season for him. A goal, a couple of assists as well. So it shows that he's not just presumably if Glenn's right in thinking that he might be playing off Smith as well, it's probably in that supplementary role to the striker that he'll be playing today. But if he can get another goal or an assist under his belt, then I would give, I think, just a lot of people a lot of confidence as well, because we've got Smith there who's also scored goals. We've got the other Smith who's out injured as well. It's starting to shape up, the way that we've started this season to be a really a strong squad, and you need that in a 46 game season, of course.
You really do, and of course Theo Archibald's been chipping in with the goals as well. Glenn, we spoke about whether the formation will be negative or positive, but you feel with Archibald up there, it's always positive. He's so direct and he's been so good. He was great last week against Bradford, and you do feel with him in whatever role he plays, he's going to drag the boys up the pitch.
Definitely. Looking at the last couple of games, the team need to get him the ball as much as possible, because you know he creates so much, and even if he's not creating, he's causing unrest in the defence because they're worried about him, because they know what he can do, so they're dragging extra players over to cover in case he beats the first man, which opens space elsewhere on the pitch. So he causes a bit of havoc in other teams' defences, you know. So let's get him the ball. A lovely pitch at Rodney Parade, which is probably the first time I've ever said that. On a good pitch, give him the ball, let him go, let him get at him.
No, absolutely, and hopefully he can get in amongst the goals again today. But first, just need to say a massive congratulations to the Orient Academy, who found themselves 3-1 down at half-time in this morning's game, and they managed to win it 4-3 at full-time, so a massive congratulations to them. Well done, lads. And one man who will be keeping an eye over those academy games and home to see a few prospects come through is Kenny Jackett, of course. So let's take a listen to his pre-match interview of what he had to say ahead of the game.
We start with a new system with 2 strikers up front. Were you happy with what you saw there?
Yeah, I was, and it's very much varied so far, because we've had players out with injury and lads away, etc., etc. So we've had to be flexible in that respect. But maybe that's the division. Maybe that's the best thing to do. And as long as you can get the right balance, you have to get your best players out on the pitch. But for Harry Smith and Rule, to, as you say, play a front 2, and then for a 2-0 win and them get a goal each, it'd be very pleasing for them as well.
You touched on that flexibility there. Of course, Dan Happy's injured in the warm-up. Shad comes in and he did himself really some justice.
Yeah, he did, but he's had good games. He had good games in pre-season. Shadrach, I was pleased with him in pre-season, and he's had other minutes, Carlisle, Harrogate, etc., where he's played well, so far this season, and he can be, even up to the Bradford game, he'd be pleased with how much he's played, how much he's been involved, and just coming up to 20 years old, looking for that breakthrough, and for Saturday's game anyway, when you consider how late he got thrown in, but it was a balanced side that he was coming into, and with an experienced centre half next to him, so there was a lot of good things for it as well and for him, but he responded, and to be fair to him, took the opportunity with both hands.
It's Newport County next. What can we expect from that side?
Yeah, I've got a lot of time and respect for their manager, Mike Flynn. I think he's done a fantastic job there over a number of years, and I'm sure they'll be a force again this year. They are every year in League Two, and Newport always a tough game. We know that they play out from the back very, very well. They can pull you around. They can give you problems, and obviously, with the deadline this week as well, I see today signed a couple of new players as well.
Great stuff there from Kenny, and of course kickoff is only 15 minutes away. If you're joining us live on YouTube, make sure to head over to the Match Centre over on the Orient website to purchase your pass. All viewers can watch it, UK and international, so hopefully see you there for that 90 minutes. But before kick-off, we're going to look slightly forward ahead to tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and the Leyton Orient women's side are facing the famous Ridgeway Rovers at Douglas Air Sports Centre. So as I said, that's a 10 o'clock kick-off. It'd be great to see as many O's fans there getting behind the women's team as possible. But let's look at some slightly different opposition now, Andrew. We've already touched on how they're in a little bit of turmoil. 7 players missing, I believe it is, through COVID. It feels as though it might open up a door for Orient, but you still never know what kind of test Newport will provide.
Do you know what? It's really interesting. So they made 4 changes from last week, and it's only really kind of 2 of them have dropped to the bench, and so they've introduced 2 players that were started on the bench last week. So in real terms, it's actually only 2 changes for them. I've seen some fans already of theirs talking about the fact that they've had this COVID outbreak and some people having to isolate, etc. That it's not really made too much of an impact on them. So they'll feel probably a bit more confident than they would have maybe midweek and thinking about the way that they're going to be setting up. So like I said, the first home game back at Rodney Parade as well too for them. So it's kind of only a couple of changes that they've really made. So it's not like a huge decimation of a squad or anything like that we're talking about. It's a couple of changes. So
although it is only a couple of changes, us Orient fans know only too well from last season when we had our outbreak that it even more so than just the changes, it can cause that kind of, not uproar, but that bit of uplift around and a bit of unsettling around the Newport camp. Do you think that will play into anything today, Glenn?
It can. It was interesting listening to Flynn, their manager, say, I'm not going to use it as an excuse. We've got 7 players out. Well, you have really, haven't you? You've just highlighted it in the press that you've got 7 players out. So if you get B, that's your excuse. So it does cause unrest. There's only 2 players, like Andrew said, that have come in and changed. So it's not a massive problem for them. Maybe their bench is weaker. They needed a change because they've not been in the best of form as of late. So we don't know. We don't know what they're going to come out. Being back at home, first home game of the season, may give them a bit of a lift. But with what Flynn also said about players vaccinated and unvaccinated and stuff like that, it could cause a bit of unrest in the changing room.
I'm sure we'll come on to that soon, and though we can't really know what to expect from Newport this afternoon, we do know their starting 11, so that's a good starting point. So let's take a look at the Newport lineup for this afternoon. In goal, Day, Haynes, Demetriou, Dolan, Norman, Upson, Bennett, Wilmot, Cooper, Abraham and Fisher, and on the bench Townsend, Farquharson, Clark, Lewis, Livermore, Kane and Telford. So you said it's just a couple of changes for them, Andrew, but what do you make of that that lineup? I was a little bit worried when I saw Timmy Abraham and thought it might be Tammy for a second, but who are the danger men in there for you?
Yeah, well, it is Timmy Abraham. That's actually Tammy's brother coming in. He's one of the kind of the 2 changes that they're making for the starting 11 today. They're kind of they build around Ed Upson, who's a very, very experienced player in the middle of the park. Very experienced at this level as well. He makes things tick for them. Alex Fisher also up top. He'll probably be playing alongside Timmy Abraham today. So they might be having to. I think this might be the biggest change for them. It looks like they might be making a slight tactical change. So they're usually pretty straightforward with their 3-4-2-1 formation. They might be changing out to having 2 up top. So we'll see how they come out and play. So that might be, when we talk about the fact that they haven't had to make too many changes, they might have had to make a quite major tactical shift. So we'll see when they come out.
And touching on that, the formation and the setup of both sides, this is the first time this season it seems as though Kenny's opted for a +5 or a -3, shall we call it, Glenn? He's opted for the 5 at the back. Some fans on social media have been saying that maybe he's done that anticipating the Newport setup, which has now changed because of COVID. What do you make of it?
I mean, I trust Kenny to be making the right call with the players that he's got at his disposal, and I think it'll be an interesting move for us because he's obviously going there. Making the change to the formation itself for the first, pretty much the first time this season, or at least changing it to the 3 or the 5 at the back. It'll be kind of like a good way to see where we're going as a team, because whilst we've been doing all right this season, this might be the winning formula. This might be the one that we go, okay, no, we're sensational in this formation, so let's stick with it. And it's probably the first chance that we've been able to have that look at it. So yeah.
I hope you're right. I hope you are phenomenal in this formation. But Glenn, just quickly, we have already touched on it, but this is the first time that Newport fans will be back in their home crowd, full capacity. We've seen what a difference it can make here, and even for a couple of games last season, we saw for that first time. That's going to give Newport an extra edge this afternoon. Yeah,
give them a lift back at home. A nice partisan crowd down there for them. Rodney Parade is a good place, albeit cold and windy to visit. I've been there many a times. It'll give them a lift. They'll be back in familiar surroundings, they're a lovely new pitch to play on. They'll be looking forward to it, forget the COVID issues. They'll just feel more at home, going out in front of their own supporters, and hopefully that will give them the lift. They'll be hoping, not for us, but they'll be hoping it gives them a bit of a lift that they've been missing.
Absolutely, and hopefully that pitch will provide the perfect surface for Leyton Orient's jacket ball. But we're going to look at Lotto Ball now, because if you haven't seen on social media, Leyton Orient, in connection with the supporters club, have started off the new Orient Lotto. This is to aim to get all proceeds to go towards the Leyton Orient Academy and keep bringing those stars through into the first team. So if you scan your QR code that is on the screen now, you can get involved with Orient Lotto and pick your numbers, and you can be in with a chance to win cash prizes and other prizes, of course. So do get involved and support that Orient Academy. Right then, let's take a look back to the Orient team. We haven't spoken about them for a while. Let's take a run through the lineup again. Of course, in goal is number 22, Lawrence Figueroa. At right back, Tom James. 3, Connor Wood. 8, Craig Clay. 9, Harry Smith. 11, Theo Archibald. 15, Alex Mitchell. 16, Aaron Drinnan. 18, Captain Darren Prattley. 19, Omar Beckles. And 25, Shadrach Oji. On the bench, Reece Byrne, Callum Riley, Dan Kemp, Tyrese Omotoye, Anthony Papadopoulos, Jaden Sweeney, and Daniel Nkrumah. Now let's talk about Shadrach Oji, Glenn. I was full of praise for him last weekend. I think most fans over here were blown away by the level of that performance. He only came in a couple of minutes before kick-off, thanks to Dan Happy's injury. But now might be a slightly tougher test away. He needs to maintain those performances now, because it's all well and good coming in and playing a blinder, but consistency is the key.
Yeah, he set his standard quite high last week, and him personally, he won't want to drop below that. The team won't want him to drop below that. He was great on the ball. He was great in his one-on-one battles, because he's a strong guy. He was winning his headers and his tackles, and he looked very, very composed on the ball. Today will be a different test. They could be against it for a period of time, so that's when the defenders will need to be disciplined, very disciplined with their positioning and staying in shape and stuff like that. So that side of the game, which they didn't have to be as much last week because we had a lot of the ball, so you don't have to concentrate on that as much when you're attacking. When you're up against it for a period of time, you need to be very disciplined. So that's a side of the game I'm really interested to see what he does today. If they do go with a 3, it's going to be slightly different. He's going to be on the outside, so he'll need his pace. If they're hitting balls into the corner, into them big gaps behind the left fullback or wing back, he'll have to get across and cover. He's got pace, so he can comfortably do that job. It will depend on how Exeter start. You think they're going to go with 2 up front? That would be ideal. If there's 1 up front, then there's 3 men marking 1. It's a bit different. You've got to think a lot more where you need to be or where you need to cover.
I don't think it matters how Exeter start, because we're playing Newport this afternoon.
Did I say Exeter?
You did.
It's just down the road.
And looking at Oji though, Andrew, and as you've touched on there, he's got the pace. We saw last week, he's got the skill, he's got the confidence. In a back 3, it's slightly more forgiving, and we've seen the long range efforts he's scored from as well on loan at Aldershot. He is almost another outlet with that pace and power, and also the way he can carry the ball.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, it's interesting to hear him talk about, you know, the way that he can sometimes play. You know, he's played left back as well at times as well. So he's obviously, you know, an incredibly useful player. And you've got to remember that this is a guy who's come into the team last minute, last weekend, performed fantastically. But we've also got Dan Happy and Adam Thompson out injured. Now we're playing 3 kind of recognised centre backs today, so we've got, you know, as long as everyone keeps their performance levels up, then we've got some serious competition for places there. So you know, I'm delighted for Shad. I know all the fans are as well, because people have been talking about him as being a prospect for a couple of years now, and since he's joined the club, and he looks, you know, that performance is just such, you know, when you're a young player, you just need to be, you know, making those incremental changes and getting better and better, showing what you're about, proving yourself on the pitch, and he really did that last weekend. So yeah, hopefully he can put on, you know, performance just for his own personal benefit, but also for us, because, you know, we loved it last weekend.
Certainly did, and another player who put in a fantastic performance last week, out of position really, Craig Clay, playing out on the right wing, and his energy levels and his work rate last weekend I think was crucial for Orient's 3 points. He found himself out of the team for a couple of games before last weekend, playing in a different position today. He's another really handy player that can be really promising for the O's.
Yeah, he's shown over the years he's an ultimate professional, you know, regardless if he's in the team, out of the team, he trains well, he trains hard, waiting for his opportunity to get back in. He got that last week, albeit out of position on the right side of midfield, but he'd done a fantastic job for the team, really workmanlike. He was around the pitch. He gave the crowd a lift with a few of the tackles when it went a bit flat and the game went a bit flat. He would steam in with a tackle, crunching tackle, win the ball, get the team going forward, and it sort of lifted everyone. And he was key last week in that second half for the performance to be that great and to get the 3 points. But I'm really pleased for him. Obviously, he's kept his place today with Hector being away, and it'd be interesting to see how he does as well.
It certainly will, and it will be a different test today for the O's. But where do you see the battle being won? Because we've kept 2 clean sheets. We've never really been torn apart by a team yet this season. But also, bar Exeter, we haven't really been rip-roaring. So, which way do you see this one going?
Yeah, I think it may well be in that middle of the park. You know, Clay and Pratley up against Scott Bennett and Ed Upson will be a major battle. And it's probably, you know, as Glenn alluded to earlier, can we get James and Wood up there supplementing Drin and Archibald behind Smith? Because if you're turning, you know, a 3-man attack into you know, potentially a 4 or 5-man attack even, then you start, you know, flooding that Newport defence. I know that's something that was one of the, you know, the major points of frustration last season was, you know, not being able to, like, isolating players, not being able to get enough players up there up top. So yeah, I think we might be able to see something different this time.
Hopefully so. Well, the sprinklers are sprinkling the pitch up in Wales. And before we pass over to Dave Victor and Matt Hiscox, time for a quick Glenn Wilkie prediction for the weekend.
Set pieces for Orient are going to be key.
Is that your prediction?
Yep.
I see you're not avoiding the scores now, Glenn. Thank you very much. But now it is, of course, time to pass over to the very capable hands of Dave Victor and Matt Hiscox. Do join us back here in the studio at half-time. Come on, you O's.
Well, the sunshine is here, and I don't think I've ever said this before. The pitch here at Rodney Parade is absolutely spectacular. It is their first game in the league on this new hybrid pitch. And of course, since they moved here, the Exiles, back in 2007, they have had